So years ago, Balaji Srinivasan used to talk about bundling and unbundling and how industries or products go through these cycles of one company bundling up all the products into one and everyone just using that company, and then that bundle of products being unbundled such that multiple companies are now providing different parts of that product or service. And when you think about what the banking experience or internet banking experience is today versus what it could be with Bitcoin, there is this unbundling dynamic, right? So with a bank, they're holding your money, they literally control your money. Whenever you want to move that money, you're asking permission from that bank to move your money. They provide you internet banking so you can monitor how much money's in your accounts, where your money's going, and a good internet banking experience is when you can have options to get certain alerts if, say, a certain big transaction's made or a large amount of money's moved, things like this, right? So your whole financial dashboard is controlled by a single company. When you move to Bitcoin and you're thinking about self-custody of your Bitcoin, right? So no one has control of your Bitcoin anymore. There's not one company that owns your Bitcoin. You are able to decide how that Bitcoin is stored. You are able to decide what sort of setup you want behind that Bitcoin to secure that Bitcoin. You can use multi-sig. Gone into this in multiple other videos. But you are now in control of how that's stored versus the bank entirely deciding how to secure their databases, etc., how to secure their infrastructure. So that's one aspect of the unbundling. Now, I think that for Bitcoin to go mainstream, you're going to want a similar internet banking experience, but around self-custodying of your Bitcoin and with much greater control on how you're storing your Bitcoin, how you're moving your Bitcoin, which Lightning channels you have open, etc., etc., right? So how can you provide an internet banking experience when someone is owning or controlling their Bitcoin themselves? So I think the first few things that you can start to think about are things like alerts, right? So if you had money stored in a cold storage setup, and you're highly unlikely to be checking that Bitcoin is still in that cold storage setup on a regular basis, right? I very much doubt people are checking, say, a Block Explorer every day or every week to check that their Bitcoin haven't been stolen. So that's kind of the first aspect. You're likely to want an alert if Bitcoin has been moved when you don't expect it to have been moved. So yeah, that's the first aspect. A second, more creative, interesting aspect is, well, if you're using a multi-signature setup, or you have a complex script securing that Bitcoin where there's multiple different ways of moving that Bitcoin, then it's plausible that you could split the multi-signature into various keys, have them stored on different devices with different companies, but you'd want to be alerted if one of those keys has been exposed to an attacker, or if that key is no longer as secure as you initially thought it was. Now, Bitcoin doesn't do anything or doesn't provide anything explicit here to allow you to do this kind of alert system for when a key has been exposed. But you could have a canary-like system where you have the vast majority of your Bitcoin behind this multi-signature setup, but then you put small amounts of Bitcoin on signal signature addresses, right? And so if these small amounts of Bitcoin on signal signature addresses get moved, then it's an alert system because you're being informed that those Bitcoin have been moved without your say-so, and hence you can assume that an attacker has access to your private key. So that's quite interesting. And then certainly when you move into Lightning and Lightning channels, which Lightning nodes you have channels open to, and whether you should be closing channels or opening channels with different Lightning nodes, that is a area that has been explored to a much greater extent today. There are Lightning dashboards and people are working on this problem because, Lightning can get very, very complicated, and unless you know what you're doing, you can allocate capital to, say, routing nodes that never actually route payments. So you're just wasting that capital effectively if you're trying to get routing fees. But even in like an edge node, right? So like you're not actually interested in routing, you're going to want to do things like rebalance channels and allocate more money to those channels when they get like drained. And so that whole experience is something that possibly you'd want to integrate into this internet banking experience, right? So perhaps you have secure cold storage where you're not expecting to move it for 5-10 years. Maybe you have some like coldish storage where it's like, well, I want it to be secure, I don't want to lose it, but maybe in 6 to 12 months I'll move that into a Lightning channel, or maybe I have a purchase I want to make in 6 to 12 months, and so it's not like I'm locking it away for 10 years. You'll want some spending money, so that's potentially a hot wallet, maybe some money on your phone where you don't even have a backup, and if you lose it you don't care that much. And then obviously the whole Lightning question. So there is a lot of complexity there, and I think there is a big opportunity there to try to provide an experience to someone, an internet banking-like experience, where you can monitor where all your money is, you can get alerts when certain things happen that you weren't expecting to happen, you can get security-like alerts when you think a key is being stored securely by a third party, but then you see Bitcoin being moved using that key. And so all of these kind of things could potentially be provided in a single internet banking experience. Challenging, a long-term project, but certainly if you're thinking about Bitcoin going mainstream and people who aren't technically, who don't have too much technical knowledge, still being able to manage their funds and move funds between secure cold storage, hot wallets, internet banking, blah, then you're really going to need to provide something like this. Otherwise, it's going to be purely highly technical people who understand how these protocols work and are organized, right? So, I mean, even the most technically gifted developers lose money, their Bitcoin gets hacked, or they just forget that they have money in a certain address or money with a certain set of words like mnemonic, and they just forget that they had some Bitcoin in this address, right? So without this internet banking-like experience around Bitcoin, you really need to be technically gifted. You need to understand the guts of the protocols. You need to understand the trade-offs you're making when you're opening a Lightning channel or closing a Lightning channel, opening a channel to a different node, the trade-off with security between like having a hot wallet and a cold wallet or an ultra cold wallet. So, you really have to be an expert without a internet banking-like experience or a dashboard where you can go and you can understand the trade-offs and understand the decisions you need to make when you're allocating money to certain use cases. That's the ambitious goal, I think, of providing an internet banking-like experience around Bitcoin.